you've never made Italian buttercream before, it's not as scary as it might seem. I was actually gonna do the peanut butter icing first, which is just American buttercream, but I left my peanut butter at home, so not doing that yet. So this is my recipe. I looked up a recipe for high elevation because things that are meringue are a lot harder at elevation. So feel free to use this recipe. I'll write it down below too. But it's 8 egg whites, a bunch of sugar. I say a bunch because this recipe that I have written down right here is for a one-time batch of this, and I'm making a double. So it's whatever 267 grams of sugar is times 2. And I'm not good at that. I have a calculator on my phone, so I'm just gonna use that. And then half a teaspoon of salt, 2 pounds of butter, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and 160 grams of water. So in this bowl, I have 8 egg whites, 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and a recipe says a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, or half, but I think that's too much. I'm just gonna do a 1/4, because I want this to taste good, but still be sweet. That's whipping. And in this little thing, I'm gonna put 134 grams of sugar. Once the whites get to like kind of a frothy, almost soft peaks, I'm gonna add in sugar slowly, and then we're gonna boil some sugar and water and pour that in. Pour that in once it gets to 240 degrees. So yeah. When you are making Italian buttercream slash syrup, basically, you want to make sure your pot is entirely clean. If there's like a chunk of something in the corner, it'll crystallize your sugar and then you'll be fucked and have to start all over, and it's a bitch to clean up. You also don't want to swirl it around once you get the water in there, because you don't want any sugar to get on the sides of the pot, or else it'll do the same thing. So I'm letting that whip on high. That is just the egg whites, cream of tartar, water, salt, sugar. And then this butter is soft. Like I can touch it like this. It's nice and soft. What I'm waiting for, and I'm gonna keep whipping that on high until I add the butter, and then I'll change it to the paddle attachment instead of the whisk. What I'm waiting for though is to touch the bottom of the bowl, and it should be very close to or exactly the same temperature as this butter, and that's when you start adding the butter. Alright, my lovely Italian meringue is just about the exact same temperature as the butter, which I touched with ungloved hands. If you touch it with a glove, you're not going to be able to tell what the temperature is. If you're upset about it, shh. So I switched to the paddle attachment, and this part is super important. You want to keep whipping on mostly a high speed. I'm not going to turn it up all the way yet. And you're adding your butter like that much at a time. Like a tablespoon, maybe a little bit less. And if you add the first few bits of butter and it starts to get soupy, that means that it wasn't quite the same temperature. And you need to put it in the fridge for like 10-15 minutes until it gets a little bit colder. Bring it back out, do the same thing, and it should be fine. And that is exactly what just happened to me. So you can understand, this is what soupy looks like. Well, I thought I pressed record on the last part. I super didn't. Here's what my buttercream looks like now. It's delicious. I probably let it rest for more like 30 minutes in the fridge before I started adding the butter. And it was pretty perfect after that. So if you need to troubleshoot it, if it looks like it's fucked up, just keep whipping. Keep whipping and you'll eventually have a really delicious Italian buttercream.